Welcome to the New School Contractor Podcast, where we highlight the trends, the technology, and the entrepreneurs that are innovating in the residential trades. All right, today on the podcast, we have Mike Kremsreiter. Mike successfully sold his business, his painting business in the suburbs of Chicago recently, and is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to sales and marketing and business process in the trade. So happy to have Mike on the podcast today and share his story and hopefully get some interesting conversation going. Mike, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. No problem. So kicking things off here, painting contractor. You have an interesting background, which we might get into a little bit as well. But give us a sense of how you got started in the trades.
I don't know, maybe like a lot of guys, I went off to college, and during some of the summers, I ended up needing a job, and so found a painting company to do some exterior painting for, and did that for a couple summers, and was actually good at it. And so after graduating with a studio art degree, wasn't sure what direction I was going to go to, so kind of fell back on that, and so I ended up working with that guy for another season, and then it was like, okay, I am good at this, but I need to go do something else. So I actually did a job at Home Depot for a while, and then kind of kept falling back into the painting a few different times, and ended up bartending, doing lots of other little things while I was still painting, and wanted to go back to school. So I started going back to school and realized that that wasn't a good idea. And then my cousin was pushing me to come get a real job, and I went into sales, sitting at a desk at CDW for about a year, and all the while still painting on the side and enjoying it. And finally, I ended up uh, getting enough side work coming in that I decided to quit my job and start a company. And next thing I know, I was doing it for 17 years. So that's kind of how I got to start, and how I got into starting a business, even though all I had was this art background, and just kind of went from there.
So what year was that when you struck out on your own?
2003,
Okay.
thereabouts, early 2004, somewhere around there, is when I finally went out on my own. I was graduated college in 2000, so I guess I've been painting since 1998, 97, somewhere around there.
Gotcha. And in the first, weeks and months of your own business ownership journey, what did it look like? I'm sure you were doing a little bit of everything, but maybe paint a picture for that time of the business and life history.
Sure. I knew nothing about business, so I was mostly, at first it was okay. Hey, I got this, this job, and I got this other job, and then I was like, oh crap, how am I going to keep track of this information? And I knew nothing about accounting or anything. My mom actually used to run payroll for rather large companies and everything. So I was like, Mom, what do I need to do to do this and make sure I'm running a legitimate business? So then I finally registered my business and started taking the steps and trying to research stuff and ask people, how do I do this? How do I actually do this the right way? And so it was messy. Definitely the way I had things set up wasn't necessarily right, but yeah, start asking questions and finally learn different ways of, okay, I'll get QuickBooks, and I'll figure that out, and start doing things. And so the first few months were definitely didn't look like a business at all. Estimates weren't written very clearly. And then, I mean, yes, there was the internet, but it wasn't the wealth of information that it is today. And so it was sloppy, but little bit at a time, and ended up getting better, and learning different things, and it got better after that first 6 months, I'd say.
Yeah. Fast forward maybe a handful of years. What was the real inflection point where you really stepped out of kind of one man show and really felt like you had a business going?
Yeah, it took a lot of years. I was very slow in the growth field, had a ton of word of mouth, didn't advertise. I had a few guys that would come on as helpers or laborers, and younger guys. Of course, I was super young at the time as well. But at first, I was treating guys as subcontractors, even though technically maybe they were employees at the time. But I didn't know any different. I finally decided to join the PDCA, which I guess is now the PCA. Recent, change there with them. But by joining that and talking to a local group of guys, I started learning way more about what I needed to do. And from that point, uh, being able to talk to colleagues and have that information available, I was able to update my business, update how I ran things, finally switched some of those guys over to actual employees, W-2 guys. And that's when I felt like I actually was really, really running a business. And this was, uh, trying to think of when I finally made that transition. It was probably 2008. So I'd been running 5 years or so. And after I finally changed over, had guys as employees, started putting together an employee handbook and really documenting how we did things, that's when the growth started to take off. And I was able to, hire more guys, set crews. And then the final transition was me trying to figure out how to no longer have to be on those jobs and to be able to
Mhm.
allow myself to not be as picky and to allow those guys to do their thing and step out of the day to day actual production and really become a business owner at that point.
Yeah, maybe we'll dig into that here in a second,
Yeah.
but maybe paint a picture of I think the last year maybe of I think at some point you had your um, the opportunity to um, step out of the business. Kind of maybe tell that story and where the business was at that
So I had no plans at all to sell. I was quote unquote happy. The business has ups and downs, but we year and a half prior, I had finally gotten a warehouse, office space, got it out of my house, and had been using a lot of software for quite a long time, a number of years, and it was basically running itself. I was trying to set it up so that way I wasn't the person that was required to run the day to day. I was primarily doing sales, and I guess that's when I finally was like, this could be an opportunity down the road to potentially sell this, or have my son take it over. I mean, he's only 8, but so it was running very well, very easy. Lots of calls coming in. So leads were there using, like I said, a lot of technology. And when the idea came about that we had an opportunity to move and everything, that's when it was like, okay, maybe I can actually sell this, and that's kind of what happened, I guess.
point?
I had all my ducks in a row that allowed it to provide the information in order to get a good valuation of the company versus had it been before even 5 years ago, I wouldn't have had all that, the ability of all that information. There would have been no way.
Yeah. And where were you from a size perspective? Any stats you care to give on kind of where the business was as you exited?
Yeah, so we were around anywhere between 6 to 8 employees at the time. At one point in time, a couple of years ago, we were up to 12 or 13 guys. But in the at least in the residential side of painting, I found that our numbers always fluctuated. And then I also, after keeping track of information and running the profitability and different things, that between 6 to 8, maybe 9 at the most, was our ideal size and the most profitable, with the least amount of headaches, at least for myself. And every
Sure.
individual is different. But at the point in time, it was easy. I have an 8-year-old and 11-year-old kids, so and a wife that was in sales and traveling often for work. So I was always trying to find out how can I run a business, make a decent profit, make a good living, but also have the lifestyle of being able to take care of my kids and work less hours.
Yeah,
So,
that's awesome. I think hopefully there's a lot of people who will tune into this that have that same dream of I feel like you got to a place, and somewhat maybe by a little bit of necessity with your wife traveling,
mhm.
you were really running the business, and the business was not running you. Um, do you think that that was a part of your vision from the beginning, or was it a little bit more of the necessity of just your life situation?
I think it was a lot of the necessity. I mean, when I started growing, and talking with my dad and things, and of course, I'll never forget the day that I told him I was quitting a job and starting my own company. And he was like, "What?" But um, it it uh, it was never, hey, let's just take the easy route, or let's find a nice comfortable position. I at one point in time wanted to grow. I wanted to be a company of 20, 30, 40 guys, and then kind of step out of it that way. And I had almost dreams of that happening. And then I guess, yeah, out of necessity and out of kind of trial and error, and realizing where I was the most happy, I finally said, you know what? No, this growth thing and being this larger company probably isn't the best idea and the best fit for my personality and what I wanted to do. And it was just kind of uh, a realization after a certain amount of time that, you know what, this size company is okay. You don't have to have this massive company, and you can still be successful, make a good profit, make good living, and be happier than if you had a bigger company. So,
Yep. So, your LinkedIn profile, you mentioned you're the studio artist as well. How did that play in, if at all, to your business journey? Um, I think that there are a lot of parallels to uh, entrepreneurial path and the artist path. Whether it be a musical artist or studio artist. How did you see any parallels there?
well, as an artist, I always laugh because people, yes, you can have natural raw ability as an artist, and there are many artists out there that are. It's just you can be in awe of their raw ability. It's just that it's in them. That's what they were born with. But you kind of you don't get there to be these crazy amazing artists without starting from the basics. Like you can't learn to draw the human body without actually learning about the human body and the anatomy of the body. And I remember my first drawing class, and here we are learning about muscles and how they attach to the bones, and I was like, how the heck does this have to do with drawing? And so when I start to think about the business, it's the same way. Like you have to grow over time. And the you don't just start off as this awesome business guy, and
Yeah,
with it grows, it changes, you learn over time. um and that's kind of what happened for me. It wasn't just, okay, I'm going to be a great business owner, or I'm going to run a successful company. Like it was a constant ebb and flow and change, and learning the basics and learning different steps, and I got better and better as it went on. So yeah, so and the transition from the being an artist to a business owner, I think I had to, it was a mind shift, from me doing the work all the time and and having a certain, I'm very meticulous and certain ways of doing things. So when I stepped away to start just being the business owner rather than the person doing the work every day, I had to find a way to not only teach the guys, but also be okay with me not being the one doing the work. Me, that whatever they were doing was okay, and to a certain standard, but then at the same time wasn't always going to be perfect because I wasn't the one doing it, and that's a hard transition. It was, I think, the most difficult part of that transition for sure.
Yeah, maybe take us into that mindset a little bit more. What was your hesitation in handing things off, or giving releasing the reins a little bit? Um, was it that customer satisfaction was going to decrease? Was it bottom line concerns? So what was the concern? And then also, did you realize any of that concern? Did you take a hit? Did you get the call from the customer? What was the concern, and how did you see it play out?
I mean, yes, some of the concerns you mentioned is, is the work going to be up to the customer standard? Are they going to be happy with it? Um, am I going to get a ton of callbacks? Am I going to have to go do all the work after the fact? And I've already paid this guy and everything. And so that was a major concern. Is the brand that I've built up to this point going to suffer? Is our quality of work going to be different? How do I transition and sell the job? Because all along before that, it was, hey, I'm going to be here. I'm going to be the one
Yeah,
doing the work. Like I'll be here. So you're meeting with the guy that's going to be applying the paint. And so I had to change how I sold each, project. And in the end, I like a lot of those concerns were kind of unfounded. I found a way to sell differently, and explain that these guys were good. They've been trained under me, and the guys really took ownership because their name was on the work. They didn't want the callbacks. I had done a lot of the training at least early on when I was doing this transition for each guy. So I wasn't. It ended up being much easier once I just let go of the reins, than I ever thought. We had a few callbacks, we had a few issues here and there, but it wasn't anything the way that it was in my head how it would go by any
right.
means. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a concern shared by many, and
Hmm.
not just in the trades. Any small business person, any entrepreneur has that fear. So thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
You've mentioned technology a little bit. Um, we talk a lot about that, and we are a technology
Hmm.
company at Groundwork, but wanted to get your thoughts on kind of the ramp up of your technology use. You mentioned QuickBooks, which I'm sure when you started wasn't even QuickBooks Online. Now everybody knows QuickBooks Online,
Right.
runs the world. But it seems like you use technology to really develop processes that didn't depend on you, which is a huge benefit of technology. It's something there that kind of keeps the tracking and awareness out in front without a person doing that. So maybe what do you remember as you look back on how you kind of scaled your technology use? What were the inflection points that you found in terms of, we got onto this thing, and then we really started to, move. What were do you have a break point or two you can point out?
Uh, I think it was when I finally decided. So I think it was maybe around that time where it was transitioning to QuickBooks Online. I wanted to be able to see numbers. I wanted to be able to see things on my phone, and I also wanted to, for the longest time, because I used a credit union for banking, and it wasn't the big Chase or a larger company, so I couldn't get a lot of the things, and I had purchased a lot of things via credit card and things, so I couldn't get those purchases into QuickBooks without having to manually enter them. So it was very frustrating. So then I started looking into, okay, how can I stop all this manual entry and how can so hey, QuickBooks Online. Okay, well, now that I got a QuickBooks Online, now the technology's there. I can upload information, download information from my bank, and it's just in there and so much easier. And then I was like, wait a minute, what else can I do? What else can I make easier? And so then, for the longest time, I was writing all my estimates up through QuickBooks. Well, when I made that transition to online, the platform was totally different. So then I was like, all right, I need a different estimating software. And in this estimating software, I want to be able to do different things and have to not recreate the wheel every single time I write an estimate, have things auto populate. And that's once I started that down that slippery slope of, okay, how can I save time? How can I not enter in, or double enter in information? That's when, once I got that estimating software and I made that, I jumped in, and I tried a few different versions and different things. And once I jumped into that, then it was, oh, whoa, well, now I want to be able to book clients online. I want to be able to have these programs talk to each other. And so then you start researching, okay, what programs are out there? What are other guys using? What are colleagues using? What are things that I can bring in that'll do all these things? And I hadn't really thought that, hey, that's the direction I was going to go. It just started happening. And then like dominoes all the way down to using a company like You Can Book Me to have customers book their own estimates based on my calendar. And that's when it was really, wow, all this stuff. And I don't have to be involved. It just talks between each other. The customer sets up their own appointment. I just have to show up. Uh, it, it was, it made life easier. It made it possible for me to run that company in a short amount of time each day.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What about any missteps? I talk with a lot of contractors who, and this goes for all sorts of type of businesses, but get in over their head on the technology. Either select a thing that's not right for them, deploy it in an inefficient way, so their team's not bought in and nobody ends up using it, and then it just, starts collecting dust and hitting your bank account. Nobody's using it. Nobody wants that. There's all sorts of ways you can go wrong with technology. Do you have any experience? Did you have any experience like that?
I did have a few, estimating softwares that I purchased or were paying a subscription fee on each month, and I would, hey, I'm going to use this, and it was 4 months later, and I hadn't made the transition, and I kept going back to QuickBooks, and I kept, and just it's just faster for me to do it the old way, and I never fully jumped into them. Maybe they were too complex or had a lot of things that I didn't need, or maybe it was still kind of early on in some of this cloud-based stuff when I was looking. So maybe the perfect one wasn't out there yet. I don't know. But I found once I did find the one I wanted, I jumped into it fully, made the transition. Yes, it took me longer because I was still getting all the information into it and learning how to use it and everything. But I'd say it was, you try different things. I downloaded I don't know how many apps thinking it would help with information on different jobs, and I heard of other companies, deck builders and other contractors using these apps with their crews, and I had realization that, well, that doesn't really fit for what we're doing. I can do it with this software and what I'm doing. But I would download them and start playing with them and spend hours with it. And okay, guys, I think this is going to be a good fit, and let's talk. And they didn't like using it; they liked the existing system, and so it was, you just kind of trial and error a few things, but then realize, okay, certain things, yes, let's jump into this, and it's going to be great. On other programs, I finally realized that, maybe this isn't the best thing. I can get it done via text message and this, and for the size of our company, I don't need to make another step or make it, even more than what we have going on.
Yeah. And from what I have seen in my experience working with all sorts of different type of contractors and technology, there truly is no one right answer. You have team structure, size of company, other systems in use, um, trade type. I mean, there's 700 different lenses to qualify that technology for your business. Did you compare notes with um, other contractors? Was that helpful most of the time?
It usually was. Usually it would be at a PDCA meeting. We used to meet once a month, once every 2 months. We were typically all similar sized businesses, but then we had a wide range of guys that were just one man shops, and we had guys that, ran 20, 30-man shops. So it was a wide variety. So you'd just be having conversations like, man, these guys didn't, you know, I caught them again filling out their time card like on a Friday afternoon before they turned it in. I was like, and here they are guessing what hours they're working. What are you doing for this? And you have conversation. Oh, well, we use T-sheets. And I was like, well, what the heck is T-sheets and how does it work? And so you just kind of throw stuff out there, and then you're like, hey, would this be a good solution for us? Would this fit? Can I afford it? And is there enough there? And then that's when I started getting the mentality of, well, if it saves me time and it saves the guys time, well, there's savings, and it'll be worth it. And then you just kind of sometimes have to roll the dice on it and try it out. And just about, most things that I tried ended up being very beneficial to the business, not just me as the business owner, but also for my team.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe talk about your sales and marketing effort a little bit. How did that grow and mature? You mentioned, obviously you were at one point selling and doing, and producing the work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, obviously that's part of the change, but in terms of how you were kind of maybe professionalizing the offering, um, where did you start and where did you get to? Maybe talk a little bit about that journey.
Okay. When I started really paying attention, was Yelp, Angie's List, a lot of these review sites that are out there, free review sites and things, and Google's been there. It wasn't always like this huge review site, but now it's obviously the bigger one. So we had some PDCA event had brought in a speaker and was talking about different technologies, where it's going, what it's doing, and online presence. And so what I started doing was making sure that every profile I had on any online, whether it be Yelp, House, Pinterest, and then it came Facebook and all those, that if I'm going to create a profile, okay, I need to make sure it's the same. And then, and if it's free, I'm signing up for it. I'm putting my name out there. I'll at least post some pictures, information about the company. And I wanted then to take advantage of this free online world that was there, that more and more people were looking for. So, and then I would go back and I would search the company name, or I'd be at a friend's house, I'd use their computer, search for DBK Painting. It was my company, and I was like, okay, let's search for it and see what comes up, see where I
Right.
land, or search for a painter near me and see. And then, so I really paid attention to the online and just building a presence there. Um, and that was, I guess, the first quote unquote marketing that I started doing, is utilizing all that free area and stuff that's out there. And that's when all of a sudden it started paying off. I started getting reviews, wasn't really asking for them, and people were finding me online. And then it's like, okay, well, social media. So I was always kind of also paying attention to what are people using. I started listening to different, business podcasts and different people, and so it was like, okay, well, now I not only have to have my website, but I should pay attention to some of these social media things and where are people at. And then, after a while, I got to the point where it was like, okay, well, wait a minute. My customers aren't going to be over here. What's my customer base, and where do I need to market for that particular market space and customer base that fits me? And from there, then it was, oh, wait, I haven't been emailing my old customers or staying in front of them. Every once in a while, I'd send out like a holiday card to all of them every other year or whatever, but it was nothing consistent. So I finally said, okay, well, I need to start an e-newsletter, and should I do that myself? And I tried it, and it was a ton of work and didn't look right and didn't send right. So then, okay, well, I'm going to have to hire that out. So found a company that would do that. And so it kind of wasn't all at once. It was just, hey, this isn't working. Let's try this. And I want to stay in front of customers. How do I do that? What avenues do I have? What's free? What's not? What do I have to pay for? What can I afford? And and of course, as you grow and as you get used to spending funds and budget on different things, it becomes easier because you also see that it's working. And when it's working, it makes it a whole lot easier to pay for a service and pay for that marketing because it's bringing in revenue.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. One of the things that just strikes me about kind of as you've described, the path to technology and your path to sales and marketing and just the business growth in general, and is that, and I hope you don't take offense to this, is that you did not have all the answers. I think there's a uh, there's just a narrative out there that, hey, I'm going to go do all this stuff at once, and next year is going to be the year.
right.
We 3x revenue, and there are certain companies that have done that. I actually just talked to a group down in Florida, a painting contractor, and they said, hey, I think they said last year was their first year, and they beat this year's revenue estimate. Obviously, a crazy year, and for many
Right.
contractors, very good year.
Mm-hmm.
But that is the exception, not the norm. And any business owner out there who is looking for the get rich quick scheme, has that expectation, is largely kind of looking for that fool's gold type of thing. And I just appreciate the way that you framed all those things,
Sure.
because it's like, hey, we tried this, and that's really what being an entrepreneur and a small business owner is about. It's just that, and the world is changing so quickly. You know,
It is.
hey, then
Absolutely.
Facebook came along, right? That's a new thing. You should probably figure that out. Like, there's a lot of just like ear to the ground type of strategy
Mm-hmm.
that probably works more than anything else. Because if you're doing something that worked 6 years ago and continue to do that thing, chances are the eyeballs and the attention is somewhere else by the time you get around to it. So you just get continuing to iterate and research and learn, I think, is a really interesting strategy for growth in general.
Well, especially for a guy that was a studio art major. I was an artist. I knew
Yeah.
nothing about business. I knew nothing about how to market to people, how to do things. I just, okay, I know how to do, I know how to paint. I know how to provide customer service, which is, hey, I never ran away from a problem. I would always run to it. So there's certain little things that I had that allowed me to be successful. Um, but then when it came to a lot of the other strategies and business things, I wasn't the one that said, okay, I'm going to make this awesome business plan and I've got all these steps involved. And I would hear of this stuff and be like, that's great. You could set goals, you do things in your mind. Eventually I started writing stuff down, but it was, hey, I need this to be easier. What can I do to make this easier? I need more
Yeah.
time in my life. What can I do to do that? So it was more of, hey, here's a problem. How can I solve that problem? And that's what moved me forward and the growth and everything. And definitely over 17 years, I was very slow to implement things and to do things. And I do hear of businesses that start out and if they put their mind to it and have a great plan and put all these things into place and they have a little bit of funding behind it, absolutely you can be extremely successful very quickly. But it wasn't a good fit for me.
Yeah.
I look at a colleague of mine that I know we're not really that close, but I he started his business right about the same time as I did. Um, and maybe even a year later, or but very similar times. And here I was running a business of 6 to 8 employees, and he was running a business of 30 to 40. Same painting, same basic market, but that was his choice.
Right.
And it was a good fit for him. And that's when I finally decided that, wait a minute, like, this is a good fit for me. This is who I am. And I realized, what do I really want, and where do I want to be, instead of looking at others. And I mean, it helps a little bit to kind of benchmark and to help you dream a
Yeah.
little bit, and move you along. But that self-realization of, hey, wait, this is a good fit, and this is the direction I want to go. And once I realized that, I was significantly happier, for sure. And I hear of guys all the time, they're like, I'm happy with 2 employees. I don't want to get beyond that.
Yep.
I'm happy with the lifestyle I have. And it's, if you want more, if you want to run it so that way you're not involved, or you're not doing the day to day. I'm not old by any means, but I'm in my early 40s, and I now that I've sold the business, and I've moved out to Colorado, and it's like, of course, I have some family out here, and I'm like, hey, Mike, you're not doing anything. How about you paint for us? It's like, okay, sure. So I try it, and it's like, wait a minute, like, I can do this. I'm good at it. I enjoy it. But doing it on my own, solely by myself, it's like, now I remember why I decided to start growing, is because my body and the trades, as you get older, just tear up your body. And so, it's just one of those things that, with a business and the direction and the ebbs and flows of it, I think you do have to really ask yourself that important question of, okay, what do I want? What makes me happy? And is it, hey, I want to grow a company and be in this position, or hey, you know what, where I'm at right now is good, but how can I make my life a little easier? And that's where technology can help. Or hey, I only have 4 hours a day to run a company. What do I need to do that? And then once you ask yourself certain questions, then things will kind of fall into place for you, because then you'll be able to start looking for answers.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't necessarily know those the pain points or the things that you don't want until you experience them for yourself, right?
Right. Oh, absolutely.
So yeah, you kind of just it's a trial and error. I think the people who are successful in that are, one, those who really have a clear understanding of exactly what they want right off the bat, and be kind of designed to that. But then those who are honest with themselves of, hey, this is enjoyable or this isn't. That goes for anybody in any job, right? Whether it's owning the company,
Hmm.
or actually swinging a hammer, or dipping the paintbrush in the bucket.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, the other question I wanted to ask you, because you kind of have had a chance to take a deep breath, and you're no longer running your company, and that's on to the next man up in that situation. You've had a couple months off. You're out breathing the fresh mountain air in Colorado. Um, what have you seen as a trend in either the painting industry in particular, or in the trades more in general, um, as you have seen the trend so far? Do you care to forecast, or is there anything you're excited about that you see in the trades as a trend that you might like to highlight?
Uh, I've always been one of those guys that, I come from a family of, my dad never really, he tried to go to college. My mom did a little bit of community college, but college was never really a thing that they had. My dad was a truck driver. My mom worked her way up in the office space, and in different companies and everything. And so I was always told from a very young age that I was going to college. Like, you're going to make something better of yourself. You're going to go to college, learn something, and so I did go to college, and I learned how to think very well for myself, and outside the box in a lot of ways. But I was still a studio art major, which I laugh at. But I was also a football player, and I played lacrosse, and an athlete, and I feel like certain things I learned in college were more from outside. They were outside the classroom than actually inside the classroom. So today, when I start thinking of the industry, is it and the people that are in it and the workers that are there, is it needs more people that you don't necessarily have to go to college to be able to be in the trades, but it's a career path that you can be very, very successful at. Yes, having a degree in business would definitely help somebody who wants to grow a business, but it's not necessary. There are certain things that are there, and I see guys that are, you know, have gone to college and they end up in the trades and they do extremely well. And I see guys that, start out in one trade, do another trade, and they're making, more money than the guys that went to college, so depending on where you're at. So I see that happening more and more. Um, that stigma of being in the trades isn't isn't there as much. I see guys that are going to college to get different degrees, and next thing you know, well, they could go work in that field, but they enjoy swinging a hammer too much
Right.
more, so that's the direction they're going. So without that stigma being there as much, I think that's disappearing. It's still there, but I see it disappearing, and um, then now you throw technology into the mix, and you throw a lot of the things that are available to the trades now, that more and more guys, especially younger guys coming in, are open to it. And it's more and more thinking, okay, what does the customer want? What does the customer need? And when you start throwing that in there, and the industry starting to think that way, instead of, hey, you either take it or leave it. I am this guy, like, go somewhere. The attitude's changing. It's more, okay, how do I make the customer happy? How can I make it easier for them? And then the realization, at least for me, was, wait, this is easier for me. I can run my business, easier and faster, and without as much headache. And so the technology is going to help, but I think the openness to looking at the actual customer more, rather than talking about themselves, and thinking, okay, what's in it for me? It's what's in it for the customer. And then when you have that transition in thought, now the businesses can be really successful, um, in that. So not sure if
Yeah.
that answers your question,
No,
and
no,
where I
that's
see
great.
things
It's
are
good.
going,
Yeah,
but
that's the old open-ended question. See where
yeah,
Mike takes it. So yeah, yeah, you cross the goal line. Yeah, I mean the two things you point out are things that I'm absolutely passionate about too. Um, there's a plumber here in Indianapolis, where I am, and he mentioned that I think he had two job postings. One was for a plumbing. He needs a plumber, right? Like everybody needs
mm-hmm,
a plumber. There's
yeah,
just an incredible shortage in all trades, but especially in like some of the, especially you get a union. There's a lot of need there. So he had that out there in an applet or a job opening for uh, a graphic designer. Plumbers 50, 60,000 out the gate. Graphic designers 35. He gets nothing on the plumbing side and gets overwhelmed with graphic designer resumes. So it's
right,
like something's not quite adding up. So yeah, you throw the college debt problem on there as well. There's a lot to be done in terms of um, how the trades recruit, and I think one of my missions is to make the technology more of a draw for young people getting into trades. There's no reason it
mm-hmm,
shouldn't be. Everybody's got a cell phone in their pocket with famously more computing power than the Apollo missions or whatever they say.
right.
So there's going to be a huge change in the way that these small businesses are run. So two great points to highlight for sure.
Thanks. Yeah, no,
Well,
I
cool.
completely agree.
Yeah. Well, if people want, I know you're breathing the mountain air and just kind of hanging out, hiking and hanging with the kids. If people want to get in touch with you, just kind of share notes or ask you any questions about your story and your success in the trades, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Probably over email. So emails. I don't know if you want me to spell it out here for them,
Sure,
or if
go for it.
yeah. So I mean, it's Real easy. It's and then Kremsreiter, my last name. So MKREMSREITER @gmail.com. So email is probably the best way to get a hold of me. And it's super weird not having a business, contact information or signature or anything like that right now. Eventually, maybe I'll get back to that. But right now, yeah, I'm always out willing to help and give direction and listen and guide people. That's kind of, the direction that maybe I'll go. I'm still, open to a lot of different things. Haven't decided the direction I want to go. I don't think it'll be back into, a residential painting business. Kind of looking for, like I said, maybe the next challenge. Whether maybe that's working with a company, maybe it's, getting into technology myself. I don't know yet. So, but I always want to help people and that's kind of, I look back on the mentors I've had. Maybe they didn't realize they were a mentor to me. But it was the fact that I was always willing to listen and pay attention to what other people have done and what experiences they had and how could that potentially help me. So
love it. All right, if you've got a challenge from Mike, reach out to him. He's looking for something. So, all right, I think we'll wrap there.
That's what life's about, right? That's what life's about.
Right. That's exactly right.
These challenges. Exactly right. Otherwise, it gets pretty boring.
That's right. Well, Mike, I appreciate you jumping on and having a conversation. I enjoyed it, and thanks again.
Yeah, thanks again for having me. Appreciate it.